We are joined by Phanindra Kishore for today's video podcast at the Flashpoint Now. Phanindra is AVP at MetricStream for the Americas region. He is a member of the Harvard Business Review Advisory Council. He has over 26 years experience leading large-scale transformation, governance, risk and compliance, and cybersecurity programs. He has managed multi-million-dollar global portfolios and he's led teams across geographies. He has keen interest in emerging technologies including AI, and this gives us the opportunity to learn about risk management in the age of AI and other allied topics. Welcome to the podcast, Phanindra, and thank you for making the time.
Thank you so much, Kailas, for this opportunity. Looking forward to interact with you.
One trend many leaders in technology companies, at least those who interact with customers, what they talk about is that AI has changed what customers expect them to do. There seems to be an assumption today that AI should make everything faster, simpler, more intelligent, almost as if technical limitations don't apply to ideas at all, rather taking ideas to execution. What is your advice on technology providers managing such expectations amongst their customers? Are you seeing something similar yourself?
Yeah, definitely. This is a very relevant question for the current trend which is going related to AI. Kailas, I'll just start off with one particular theme, right? So AI is no more a productivity tool, actually. It's becoming a part of critical infrastructure. So from my point of view, what I would think of is companies are successful focusing on business resilience, understanding the real world problems, and then trying to automate using the AI and all, and at the same time, right, managing the critical infrastructure elements and all. So, but not the companies who really focus on AI and trying to do everything automated. Okay. So coming to your question about the expectations from the technology vendors, right? So yes, now if you see, right, with AI, everything, whatever that we are asking, it's coming in seconds. Like if you take anything for that matter, right, creating a PPT for that matter, you give instructions and then it is giving in seconds whatever that you want. But at the same time, let's say like AI is writing code, AI is building the workflows, right? AI is everywhere actually. Of course, it is increasing the productivity. But one thing is from the technology vendors as well, earlier what happens is the delivery model is based on the features, right? So it's like this: you add this particular workflow into the product, or you build me this particular feature. So that's where the whole project life cycle goes on. Now the expectations are changed, right, with speed, and then AI is able to build the workflows, AI is able to write the code, AI is able to write the requirements, all of this. But one thing is, though it was able to improve the productivity and it is able to give the speed and outcomes, one thing really the challenge is building the context, right? So because if you take an example of, I'll just go back to the real life example, right? In earlier days and all, if you have to travel from one place to another place, we rely on some person who visited that particular place, and then we ask in generally how much time does it take to travel from this place to another place. So let's say like if they say like 2 hours, right? So then normally now we are relying on GPS. So GPS give you exact time frame, and let's say like if it says that it takes 1 hour, let's say like if you reach 1 hour 10 minutes, right? So the expectation that you have on GPS or system, it is increasing. So but normally when you take more time, you really get frustrated. So it's the same case with AI as well. Of course, AI is giving productivity improvements, AI is giving the speed, AI is building the code, and then we are seeing a lot of innovation around this particular space. But still, when it comes to business critical things, right? Let's say like a bank wanted to rebuild their risk assessment process. Okay. So of course, AI can build workflow, AI can suggest requirements, and AI can do the coding as well. But one thing is, AI doesn't understand regulatory requirements that the bank has, right? But at the same time, AI will not know the context. So all these elements it will take into the picture when it comes to meeting the expectations of the technology vendors. But at the same time, if you see, right, AI is building the dependency as well. So technology vendors or anybody for that matter, whoever is considering AI when it comes to speed, all these factors to be considered. So from my point of view, a balanced view is required when it comes to meeting the business expectations. Yeah, this is what I would think of and I would like to provide my insights regarding this particular item. Yeah.
So thank you for that, Phanindra. Let's stay with AI for the next question, but this time through the lens of it being an enabler in risk and governance. Risk and governance, an area that you've spent much of your career in. Risk management has traditionally relied heavily on human expertise, human judgment, context, areas that we consider are specialities of the human in the loop. Where do you see AI creating the most value today in risk and governance? Do you still think the human element, the human in the loop remains non-negotiable? To what extent? Would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so when it comes to GRC, governance, risk and compliance, right? Unlike any other industry, even for this particular domain as well, AI is bringing a lot of value addition. Because I am dealing with my own customers, right? In general, I interact with CISOs, I interact with chief risk officers, chief compliance officer, ethics officer, and all. So when you take into the risk space, right, there are a lot of AI use cases that we can consider. Example, AI understanding the policies and then suggesting where there are gaps in terms of policy, whether the policy is effective or ineffective. At the same time, whatever the policy requirements are there, also checking the controls within that particular space and seeing whether the controls are effective or ineffective. And moreover, right, when we deal with the regulatory changes and all, so as and when the governance becomes stricter and then companies need to follow the governance, right? From that point of view, as and when the regulatory intelligence or alerts comes into picture, analyzing thousands of regulatory alerts, humanly it is not possible. In general, if a compliance officer or anybody for that matter within the lines of defense, if they have to analyze these regulatory alerts, it would take normally a week or more than that. So now with AI being in place, what is happening is in minutes, when you give a prompt appropriately, when you are trying to automate this process using AI or agentic AI, right? So it is giving complete broader picture in terms of these particular regulatory changes will have an impact on what kind of policies, how it will have an impact on your overall organization risk posture and everything, right? At the same time, based on that, not only AI helping in terms of automating these specific use cases which I have mentioned, but also it is helping the decision makers actually to take the right decisions. So from my point of view, what I would say is AI is not a copilot. AI is an enabler in terms of helping the C-levels to take appropriate decisions. I'll just give you one example. If you take, normally what happens is companies perform the vendor due diligence, right? Let's say like a company is having hundreds of third parties, okay? So they wanted to understand how their third parties are performing when it comes to the services, right? So third-party due diligence is one of the key aspects when it comes to vendor risk assessment. So in those aspects, AI is really helping how the vendor is performing by understanding multiple other different factors. But one thing is, from a decision point of view, right, it is leaving it to the person who are the authority to take the appropriate decision. So from my point of view, what I wanted to say is wherever it is required, human in the loop is definitely required when it comes to risk landscape. But at the same time, human on the loop is also exactly required, whatever the just scenario I had mentioned. And one more thing I wanted to say is human out of the loop when it comes to the governance, risk and compliance is no more a chance actually, because governance is heavily relying on different kind of frameworks and then regulations and all. Yeah, so that's my view about this, Kailas. Yeah.
You spoke about AI as an enabler for risk and governance. Now, if you'll allow me to do a 180, I'm curious to know your take on AI needing governance. Everybody more or less agrees AI needs guardrails. The debate is around who defines them, how much governance is enough, and when governance may start becoming a constraint. What's your view on AI governance today? Should there be a universal framework? Does the answer depend on the industry and use case? All yours, Phanindra.
Yeah. Actually, what is happening is innovation is really happening very fast in the companies when it comes to agentifying their workflows and identifying the business use cases and then automating them in a complete autonomous point of view, right? So what companies are normally doing is first they're focusing on automation rather than thinking about the governance. So later I have seen situations wherein companies, they have automated hundreds of AI use cases, but later point of time when it comes to business transformation or operationalizing them to the field or to the production, it's like from that point of view, right? Many of the companies are failing from that point of view. Rather, they are heavily investing on AI because it's obviously the heavy infrastructure and then tokens, right? Cost is one element, but when it comes to the operationalization and then transforming that to a business outcomes as well, it's a big concern at this point of time. So from that point of view, to eliminate these risks, right? So I have recently studied MIT research study. So what they recommend is minimum viable governance. So what that means is every industry doesn't require strict governance rules basically. Okay, because if you impose heavy governance as well, from that point of view, your innovation get killed, and moreover shadow comes into picture, and then basically people try to see the alternatives to things make it happen. So from that point of view, what I would suggest is governance is really required, and it should be invisible. By default, it should run the way initially when cybersecurity comes into picture, right? That point of time in the project life cycle, DevSecOps was introduced. So now AI also should be part of your project life cycle by default. So that way, right? Later point of time when we try to operationalize, we no need to struggle. So that is my view. But at the same time, I will just take some examples. Let's say like an agent recommending a movie recommendation, right? That doesn't require too much governance. Okay. But well, an insurance agent trying to approve an insurance, or otherwise a medical assistant or healthcare agent trying to do certain actions, right? So these kind of finance related, healthcare related, it will have more regulations. So that's where actually more stricter governance is required. Okay, but at the same time, what I also say is, many of the companies, they are trying to automate everything using AI. There is a dependency risk as well. Let's say like, infrastructure is not accessible, okay, or because of change in regulations or something else, or geopolitical situations. If the model is not available, right, then that point of time there is a business continuity planning required even for AI as well, in terms of accessibility, in terms of reliability. All these factors, it need to be considered when it comes to governance elements as well, because governance is nothing but business continuity, resilience, at the same time constantly working as expected. Because nowadays we see, right, model hallucination, it's a very good example, but at the same time model drift as well. So now model may work for 6 months with the data that you have in the system, but when the data grows, right, what happens is over a period of time model may not give you the right results as well. So from that point of view, so model drift as well, it need to be considered over a period of time, how accuracy the model is operating in a consistent manner. These are the different governance aspects. Because if there is no governance happens, right, if there is an incident, if it is impacting 10 users, then it'll be an incident that you track it and try to contain or resolve, right? But let's say like if that incident is, if that particular error is impacting millions of users, that will become a headline. So these kind of elements we need to consider when it comes to governance. So as I was suggesting, right, we need to know exactly what kind of governance frameworks that need to be incorporated to eliminate the kind of risks that I've mentioned. So that's where MIT suggests minimum viable governance. And moreover, even EU Act ISO 41,000, they are coming up with AI related risks wherein companies, they need to consider in terms of monitoring. So that way, right, whatever the examples that I have mentioned, it can be mitigated effectively, which will be in effect from August 2026. Kailash. Same is the case from US as well. NIST as well coming up with AI risk mitigation algorithms basically to manage the businesses effectively.
You brought up very interesting points, Phanindra. For example, when you said shadow AI, I couldn't help but think it's human behavior to seek out an efficient solution to a problem. If
Yeah,
you apply
exactly.
too many constraints, people, teams will just find ways around it to anyway try to get to that solution. So you might
Exactly.
as well make that solution officially available so
Yeah.
you can govern it. I think
Exactly. Yeah.
uh,
Shadow AI is the one thing actually which we have to be very careful, but at the same time, governance plays a critical role. So that's where we need to have proper guardrails in place. And let's say, like when model hallucination that I talked about, if it is there, how to avoid that, right? Because tuning the models are required. So as and when the models are trained, hallucination can be eliminated, bias can be eliminated. So with that, when you have all these factors factored into your solutions, so shadow AI will never come into picture actually. Yeah, I mean, as I said, like governance will become invisible and it will drive the innovation and then outcomes automatically.
so
Yeah.
thank you for that. Coming to our next question, you worked across governance, compliance, cybersecurity, enterprise transformation, and now AI, basically the works.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, what are the risks or challenges that concern you the most? In other words, what I'm asking is, what keeps an enterprise risk leader awake at night?
Yeah, so more than a technology, right? I think technology problems can be easily solved, right? The speed at which AI is transforming the business, right? That is actually alarming, and the speed at which companies are building the AI agents and then trying to automate, that is one thing actually which is alarming. The reason is, as I was mentioning about earlier, there is a concentration risk and dependency risks. Nowadays, none of them, I think, they are trying to see these two risks as their primary portfolio of the risk portfolio. Okay. The reason being, as I was mentioning, right, model availability, geopolitical changes, and then infrastructure changes. So whatever be it is, right? Let's say like all of us, you have built a very good model and you have automated your 100 different business use cases, which is really giving an outcome and it is working perfectly fine. But all of a sudden, when we wake up and then try to see if the business process is not working or you are not able to access your system, it's just like cybersecurity incidents, right? At least cybersecurity incidents are visible, but AI risks are not visible because it is controlled by someone. We don't have 100% visibility and then control at this point of time. Because if you see, a lot of the SaaS deployments are in-house release management projects, which we normally take care, right? So, I mean, all the environments are in our control. So if anything goes wrong also, within expected time frames, so we can address the problem. But in this case, model and availability, because of various constraints or whatever that I have stated, we don't have a control. So that's where actually, as everybody is talking about data sovereignty, so companies need to think about AI sovereignty as well. So that way, I mean, we can build any number of AI use cases. You can automate your critical business process wherein they give outcomes. We also need to focus on its availability and then the concentrated risk and then dependency risk that I have stated about. I think if we can control these two elements, I think AI is definitely going to be the game changer in future, Kailas.
Yeah, thank you, Phanindra. Before closing, I want to ask you this. Enterprises have reached a stage where leaders pretty much know AI matters. It's no longer a matter of conviction, but many are still trying to separate opportunity from hype. If you were advising a CEO or a business leader who is early in their AI journey, what would be the first few things you would ask them to focus on? Rather, how do they get started? What's the springboard?
Yeah. So from my point of view and from my experience, right, what I would suggest is we should not start with AI. Okay. So first thing that we need to do is identify what is the problem that we are trying to address, what is the challenge that we have. Start with that and then use AI in that particular problem statement and then complete the automation, right? So that way actually it gives more business outcomes. So what I and before that as well, anybody for that matter, what we need to know is how I mean, what AI can do, what AI cannot do, and where AI fails. We need to understand that. So and then after that, right, what we need to do is we need to start small and pick the business use case, implement it, roll out, and then scale it. So that's what I would suggest. And again, the third element which is really important is basically, so while we are scaling it, right, so as I was mentioning, resiliency and speed also, it's really important. Okay. Yeah, I mean, finally, what I wanted to say is, as I was mentioning in the beginning, it's all about governance, leadership, and then standardization when it comes to governance, and then focus on the automation. Then it's going to give very good results, actually. Yeah.
Phanindra, you gave us a great headline there when you said, don't start with AI, start with the problem statement.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and experience with us today. It's been an interesting discussion spanning AI, governance, risk management, and leadership. We appreciate the time you spent with us, and we wish continued success in your journey. Thank you, Phanindra.
Thank you so much, Kailas. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, thank you.